Okay, this will go relatively quickly today. Basically going to announce the midterm and discuss the format of it and how you can study for it. All right, so first off, the midterm will be given in person. And let me hide myself so you can see that. So the midterm will be given in person. Section 1, meaning if you were in the Tuesday, Thursday section from 2 to 4:15, that'll be an ATC104. And if you're in section 51, then that will be an ATC327. So, and that will be from 5 to 7:15. So come to the session that you are assigned on your schedule. You can kind of look that up or look at the course syllabus to know which section you're in, or go to Blackboard and it'll tell you which section you're in. Just make sure to come to the right place. So it will be in person in the classroom. You'll be given a paper test. It'll be up to you to fill that out. Now, the study guide is posted on the course site, so take a look at that. And we'll talk more about the study guide here in just a second. Now, a couple things about the exam. The exam will consist of 3 different parts. Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 will have some short answer things where I might have you do some, like, I'll ask you a question, like, for example, like, what's a variable? How do you declare it in C? Or what's a pointer? How do you declare a pointer? How do you access it? Or what's the dereference operator? I'll ask you a question like that. And then I want you to answer in complete sentences or some sort of paragraph. So in other words, I expect you to explain something and answer whatever questions are asked in that section. The second part of the test, besides the short answer, will be kind of a code analysis. In the code analysis, what I'll do is I'll give you a little snippet of code, and that little bit of code that I give you, so I'll give you some snippet of code. It won't be a long piece of code. It'll be some fairly small thing, and I'll say, what's the output? And so what I want you to do is draw or write out a picture of what the output would be. So for example, if it was printf hello \n world ! Then I'd expect you to draw off to the side hello, and then on the next line, because of the \n world ! So I want you to show me exactly what the output would be, spacing and everything included. Now, if the program has a bug in it, then I want you to identify that bug in the code and say this line is missing a semicolon, or this line has some sort of thing that will prevent it from compiling. So if the code will not compile or will not run, then I need you to identify that and explain why. Now, Part 1 and Part 2, those will be given out together. So you'll get those as a packet of paper. You write your stuff in there, and then you turn that in. And when you turn that in, you'll get Part 3. Part 3 will have some little programming tasks to accomplish, kind of like little mini lab assignments. And then you'll work on those. So the idea here is the instructions for Part 1 and 2, those will be handed out together. It's open book, open notes, but you cannot use electronics. So no internet, no phone, no calculator, no any kind of electronic device is not allowed to be used. It all has to be completed on paper. So that means if you have notes where you've written them down in an electronic format, you might want to print some of those out on paper and bring them to the test. For the most part, though, you really probably won't need much in the way of notes, but if you have them, you're allowed to bring them as long as they're in a paper form. Now, I will distribute the Part 1 and 2 first, and you have to complete that and submit that back to me to get Part 3. So you'll finish the first part, turn that in. When you give that to me, I'll give you the Part 3. And Part 3 is also open book, open notes, but you can use the computer to complete the task. So you'll have to write some programs. You can actually write them in code blocks or whatever you're using to compile C for your labs. You can go and write them, test them, debug them, and then turn those in. When you go to turn them in, you'll turn those in on the source code file, meaning the .c file. You'll turn that in on Blackboard for each of those questions. There probably won't be a lot of those. There's not going to be like dozens of those. There'll be maybe 2, 3 little programs that you have to write. One thing, though, is even though you're allowed to use the internet, you cannot use any tools to communicate with other people, meaning you cannot use something like Discord. You cannot use Stack Exchange. You can't use any sort of messaging app while you're working on the exam. You can't send email, you can't post things to a forum. You need to work on writing the stuff. You also can't do a Google search and find somebody else's code and then submit that. If you do that, I'll know about it, and you won't get any points at all for that. So in other words, you need to write the code in an IDE or in a compile, and then compile it and test it and get it working. Now, if you don't have access to a computer or laptop, you can write out the programs on paper. So you can take some paper, write the programs out, kind of longhand, and turn that in. I'll grade that as well. But that'll obviously prevent you from being able to debug and things like that if you're doing it on paper. I'd prefer that you did the source code, had the extra chance to compile it, test it, and submit it. So bring a laptop. But you're not going to use it for parts 1 and 2. You can use it for part 3. Okay, a few additional instructions. You'll get, and I already mentioned this, but I'll go through it again. You'll be given part 1 and 2 on paper at the same time. You'll complete those. You return that portion. When you return that, I'll give you part 3. And then when you complete part 3, you'll turn those in on Blackboard, and then you'll give the paper back to me for part 3. I'll put it with your test for parts 1 and 2, so you have all of the parts together. And then I'll grade those on the paper and then get them back to you. Now, one thing I would like to know ahead of time is if you have some accommodation, please let me know before the exam. So send me an email so we can make arrangements and do that this week sometime. Don't wait till next week. Now, one quick thing, I'm going to give a little bit of a hint as to how to study. Look at the content outline posted in the study guide. So there's a study guide on the course site, so look at that. And make sure you understand each of the concepts that are listed in that outline. So I want you to look at that outline. It has all of the stuff that we've kind of covered in class so far up to the point of the midterm. So look at that, make sure you're familiar with all those things conceptually. If you're not, go back and rewatch some of the lectures, go back and look at your notes. And then also in that study guide are some practice problems of the code analysis problems. So try to solve those and then look at the answers at the end. So basically try to figure out what they would print, go to the end, and then check your work against what's in the end. Another good thing to do before the midterm is make sure you've completed all the lab assignments and make sure you understand what you've done in those lab assignments. Make sure you understand why they work and what every line of code does. And one final thing to help you be successful is I'm going to be available on Thursday, and that for the normal class period during normal class hours. So both section 1 and section 51, I'll be in the classroom during those times. So what I would suggest you do is come in, work on the study guide thing. If you have questions on homework, come in, ask those questions. And also feel free to ask me questions on email or something else. But don't wait till like next Tuesday right before the midterm and then ask me questions and then expect to get an instant answer, because I may be busy doing other things at that time. But I will be available in class, all class time Thursday, afternoon and evening. This should say afternoon and evening during normal class hours. So come in, ask questions then. And then be prepared for the midterm. All right, so finishing up here, again, the midterm will be in person. It'll be 1 week from today, so next Tuesday, which is October 20th at the normal class time. If you're in section 1, it's 2 to 4:15 in ATC 104. If you're in section 51, it's 5 to 7:15 at ATC 327. And go through the study guide and be prepared for it. So that's it today. For today, look at the study guide, finish your labs, come to the study session on Thursday. And other than that, stay safe. When you come to the study session, make sure to bring a mask and make sure to come prepared to go through the stuff. And also make sure you come to the midterm session. Make sure you're there on time. And be sure to be prepared for that, because there is some time constraint on that you have 2 hours and 15 minutes to do everything that you need to do. The short answer, writing things out, the code analysis, looking at the code, figuring out what it will output, and then writing a few little mini programs that will actually do something. So be prepared. Don't expect because it's open book, open notes, I'll just show up and I'll figure everything out when I'm there. because you're going to run out of time if you're not prepared. All right, so be prepared, and hopefully I'll see everybody on Thursday. And if not, I really hope I see everybody next Tuesday for the actual midterm. I guess we'll see how many people actually watch this and how many people show up, but hopefully everybody. All right, stay safe.